Fight fans were understandably quite alarmed after UFC 286 when Sam Patterson appeared to continue to try and fight referee Mark Goddard after the fight had been called, and what some people thought was a questionable stoppage. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and my goal in this channel is to teach you a little bit about the sports medicine world. I'm going to defend Mark Goddard a little bit right off the bat because I don't think this was as clear-cut of a late stoppage as some people are making it out to be. At least when I watched it, it looked to me like Patterson was still trying to roll around. He was still trying to get away. It looked like he was volitionally moving his legs to turn his body away from the contact. And so I understand why Goddard, who I definitely think is an excellent referee, didn't step in and stop it exactly right away. But then, of course, this was the scene afterwards where Patterson was still clearly confused and looked like he was still trying to fight Goddard. And it just happened to be Goddard because that was who was in front of him. This doesn't have anything to do with him specifically. What we need to understand about concussions when we see something like this is that whenever you have a concussion, you can almost think of it as something errors in your computer. You get your computer freezes, something happens where it then has to go through a shutdown and a restart process. Whenever the impact comes in where we sustain the concussion, you get this massive depolarization of the nerve tissues within your brain. Everything sort of fires in a very chaotic, disorganized manner that then leads the brain to shut down. That shutdown in the brain is what causes that loss of consciousness. And then the gradual return of consciousness and return of awareness is that reset, that reboot process. But during that reboot process, people can be extremely disoriented. They can be very confused. If you ask them questions, they might not know their name. They might not know where they're at. That's part of our evaluation of when somebody has a head injury. It just so happens that that display of disorientation and confusion came out with this fighter thinking that he was still in the middle of the fight. His senses weren't about him enough to recognize that Goddard was not his opponent, that these people around him were not his opponent. All he knew was still being in that fight mode because his brain was still trying to go through that reset period. The only thing you can really do when this happens is what Goddard did really well with the rest of the team here. You try to keep them safe. You try to not be too aggressive in a way that's only going to amplify their reflexes that are firing to protect themselves. Try to keep them calm, try to keep them safe, restrain them as best you can until that reset process finishes where they're a little bit more aware and able to sort of calm down and recognize what's going on. If you jump on them too quickly, you almost feed back into that system where they think they're in a fight and you make it worse. So you have to do this in a very calm, controlled manner, sort of work with them through that reset process to make sure they're safe as they get out. This is not something in and of itself that makes me think this was a more severe brain injury than any other concussion that we see in the sport. This is just the nature of concussions having such wide variety in how they display their signs and their symptoms. When I think of the severity of a concussion, I think of how long was the loss of consciousness? How many symptoms did somebody have and how bad were the symptoms? And then how long did it take to recover? I don't necessarily think of something like this as meaning he had a worse injury or that this was directly attributed to what some people might think of was a late stoppage. That's it for the video, everybody. I hope Patterson is doing okay and recovers quickly after his concussion here at the fight. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below, and until next time, we'll see you later.